Fear is one of the biggest reasons why people stay stuck after separation. The fear of not being able to afford a normal life, the fear of how much a divorce is going to cost, the fear of percentages, property settlements, and making the wrong move at the wrong time. And when you don't understand the process, this fear only grows. In this episode today, we're going to unpack the chicken and the egg problem when it comes to early separation and divorce that so many people face and they don't even realize they're going through it. And why trying to just get on with your life without a plan doesn't actually move you forward. Welcome, Mum.
Hello, Laura. Hello, everyone.
Hello, I'm Laura, divorced mother of 3, and I'm here with my mother, Lynette Galvin, with 35 years' experience in family law. You're listening to the Divorce Course podcast. Through our candid discussions, we hope to help you through your divorce or de facto separation. We will be answering the most commonly asked questions and covering the stages and steps that you will face on your way to freedom.
Now, before we get started, just a reminder, Mum is not your lawyer. I am not a lawyer and we're not psychologists either. But we do notice a lot of people, especially when we do the webinars, and this is webinar week, a lot of people get stuck in this situation where they've been separated under one roof or they're just stuck in one part where they've been separated. For one lady last night, Mum, she said she'd been separated for like 5 years, but they hadn't done anything yet. So
No,
do you see this a lot? These people get...
I do. And it's a kind of, it seems so big and hard for people. And so what being stuck kind of looks like, in my mind, I think, is that there's the big separation, you're under one roof. But the next morning, you go to work, you take your kids to school, you come home, they go to work. And before you know it, a year's gone by, and then you think, well, I might as well have the holidays together. And then, so you're really kind of just spinning your wheels. But I see it so often. And it never used to be a thing under one roof. But now, I acknowledge there's a housing crisis on in Australia at the moment. But I wonder how many of those separated under one roof is because one person won't move out. And so they kind of inflict themselves on the other person.
Yeah, and you're right, Mum. It's all these fears that really just get people stuck. And one of the quotes that I love, and I cannot think of who said it, but the best antidote to fear is action. And by moving through the fear, you get out of it. But if you stay in it, you can be in it for a long time. And I know, I remember, like we talked about in the webinars, and me being on that playroom floor, just thinking, I cannot possibly see a way to untangle all of this. I don't even know what the rules are, and I don't know what my life could be like. I want it to be exactly the way it is now, just without my partner. I want a divorce, but I want everything to stay the same, and I'm too afraid of what the future holds, and I'm too afraid of how much money it's going to cost, and I'm too afraid of, where am I going to live and how are things going to be different, and all of that just sits on you and really does make you not want to do anything. And we're not talking about do anything as in get divorced, and we're not encouraging people to get divorced if they don't want to, but we're talking about doing anything as in just staying separated, acknowledging that you've broken up with your partner, but still sharing everything, still living together, still doing all the things you would have done if you were married or together, but now in this weird limbo situation because no one knows what to do.
And it's being stuck. It's being stuck. And you had me with all my experience.
And I still
working
felt
in
stuck.
family law, and you still felt stuck.
Yeah.
So you poor thing. Yeah.
And if anyone is listening and they're already in the court system, or maybe they've done all of the mediation stuff and they know that the next step is going to court, a lot of people, Mum, they get stuck at that stage, don't they?
They do.
Because they go, we've done mediation, we've tried this, I got the lawyers to send letters, I've spent $10,000 on lawyers already. They've said the next step is court, and they've just gone, ugh, I don't want to do that, or I feel stuck again. And they go through that whole process again of this limbo of going, do I, don't I, what should I do next kind of thing. Do you see that as well?
I do. And people think going to court, like you hear the costs of going to court, right? And your lawyer, if you'd seen one, would probably be pretty upfront about how much that costs. But it doesn't, you don't have to pay it all at once. You may, and so many cases do, you may find once you at least start your proceedings, which would maybe only a few $1,000s to get it into the court, then you're anyone on the other side who's not cooperating, like with disclosure or spousal maintenance or leaving the house, the court can then put the heavies on them, so to speak. And it's not just you. Someone explained it like, if you don't actually take them to court, if you're still begging, threatening, pleading, begging, threatening, it's like when the dog's off the lead and it doesn't have good recall. You've got no control. You need to get that lead back on your case and bring it back and take it through. So a lot of people start court and realise, okay, this is just another opportunity to settle things. And if it doesn't, hey-ho, well, at least a judge will at the end, because people negotiate the whole time while they're or they should.
So we see those people getting stuck at that first bit where they've separated, but they don't know what to do, so they just keep doing what they were doing anyway, except for the relationship part. Then we see those people that get stuck after they've done all of that and it still hasn't worked and they have to make that decision to go to court. And then they still just go in limbo of whatever they were doing, but this court thing looming over whether or not they should do it. So let's have a look at some of the fears and maybe you can help alleviate them, because we're not doing this to like scare you or anything, but I know that if you're listening to this, you probably do feel stuck. So let's talk about some of these stuck barriers. So the fear of finances after divorce, Mum. A lot of people are worried they're not going to have a normal life. If I do my property settlement or if I go to mediation or if I go to court, I'm not going to have a normal life anymore and I'm not going to have any money after divorce. So how can you alleviate that for them, Mum?
I think you need to consider that, look, for a start, if you're dividing a cake between two people, neither of you is going to get a whole cake. You're just going to get some of the cake. But it doesn't mean that your life isn't meaningful and that you won't have things going forward, particularly if you're young. With the value of houses at the moment, people will end up with a significant deposit on their homes if they've got a half a cake or 2/3 of a cake. So people work that out.
Well, can I just stop you there? Just the point that you've pointed out, there is a cake and you do get a bit of it.
Yes.
I mean, that is something that people don't realise and get stuck in that fear just to start with.
Yes.
But once you have a look at it and go, oh, okay, there's a cake to divide up and I'm going to get some, that's helpful. And that means my whole, because I think sometimes the mindset is that someone's just going to take the whole cake away and you're just going to be homeless on the streets. And I know that is a great fear for a lot of people.
A lot of people.
But if you can figure out, 1, there's a cake, 2, it's going to be divided, and 3, how to divide it through the contributions, future needs, and all of those things that we talk about, that's going to alleviate a lot of that fear and help you take that step forwards. Because how many times have we seen people, Mum, who thought that they weren't entitled to anything? Their ex said, no,
it's all mine.
It's all mine. You can't have any of it. And then so they're too scared or too afraid to leave. Yeah.
And if you're under one roof with someone who is perhaps even monitoring your movements, knows what money you spent, you might not have gone and seen a lawyer about your percentages. So your only input is from your ex, unless you're listening to us. You tend to believe them, particularly if they've been in control through the relationship, and they'll tell you how much money they earned more than you. And I've had when people ring me and they say they've got a business, I go, you both have that business. It's part of the property pool. You were doing whatever, looking after children while that business is being developed. But their mindset is the same as they've been told. And the other person is probably going to the lawyer saying, I've got a business. And I wish the lawyers would say, you both have a business.
And I think that misinformation can really increase fear, or no information. Because in the chat, in the webinar, some people are saying, my ex said, I can't have any of it. We've had members in our Q&As saying, my ex said I can't take any of the furniture because none of it's mine. All of that information that's being fed to people and listeners today that stops them from wanting to do anything or freaks them out, and then they don't take any more steps. So let's look at more in depth the cost of the fear of the money, the percentages. So, Mum, let's just alleviate some of that. So how much does a divorce cost? And let's just reiterate, a divorce, we're talking about property settlement and children's stuff. How much does that cost? You a big question.
Yeah, so there's ones I've heard of recently, quite big cases, up to $80,000.
Is that out of court or in court?
In court, right up to the trial. But then I hear of others in other places that are costing $200,000 or $300,000. It depends on the number of issues. It depends how many days the court thinks the trial's going to take. And just, I think you've got to take control of your own case and move it forward, because delays caused by people are the biggest reasons that costs go up, caused by the other person.
How much roughly does it cost if people get consent orders drawn up and agreed within themselves and go to mediation?
Yeah, probably $5,000 to $10,000. That would be, I'm not looking at the other person's legal fees, $5,000 to $10,000, depending how complex it is. Some mediators are about $3,000 to $5,000 a day. You can go to mediation at some free community ones, but there's a big waiting list.
So Relationships Australia and some of the churches have them, and they're free, and you can, or they charge you based on how much you earn. So basically, yes, I can see why people just go, well, I'm just going to stay separated, but I'm not going to do anything because this scares the heck out of me. But Mum, what happens if you are separated and you don't do anything? Is there a deadline that people need to be aware of?
Well, with de facto, if there is a separation, you've only got 2 years from the date of separation. And when no one's moving...
To what?
To bring your application to the court for property settlement. After that, after the 2 years is up, you've got to beg the court to allow you to file out of time.
And what if the court says no?
Well, you're done then. Everything just stays in the names that it's in. So if the house is in joint names, you get half, they get half, and you have to go, if the court won't let you in, the family court, they say, oh no, we don't have jurisdiction anymore. You need to go to the Supreme Court or the District Court and get that sorted. And if that's what the court does, then if you're a 50-50 owner of a place, then that's what you get, 50%. So I call that letting the chips fall where they may. So if only the family court has the power to transfer or move ownership of property between the parties, because that's a Commonwealth court and that's a big power. So you go to court and the house is in someone else's name, your ex-partner's name. The court has the power to transfer that house to you or to require it to be sold. The family court's got huge powers. If you go to your local court, Supreme or District in your state, if the family court won't deal with it, this is the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia. But yeah, if they do that, then you're stuck with whatever it says on the title deed.
Because they don't have the powers to change
that's
things.
Right. That's right.
What about if you're married and you get a divorce but you don't do your property settlement? What do you need to be aware of there?
Well, the time limit there is just 12 months from when your divorce becomes final. But check it, and leave yourself plenty of time. If you're coming up to that 12 months, be careful, because you may find your negotiations end abruptly when you're out of time. So file earlier.
And Mum, you always say it's sometimes better idea not to get a divorce until you have sorted your property settlement.
As much as you might want to get a divorce, it does start the clock ticking.
Okay. Now, the other thing I see that gets people stuck is they just assume that things get split 50-50. They just assume, those ones that assume they don't get anything. And then two, the other ones that assume it just gets split 50-50. So in their head, they're trying to figure out, what can I buy to live in? What can I afford to move forward in with half of what we've got now? And it freaks them out. But Mum, is it always 50-50?
No, it's hardly ever 50-50, the split between. And we're talking property settlement here, and including superannuation. So my little bugbear, equalising superannuation is not a thing. It has to be looked at in the overall context. So you might think, okay, you do a bit of research, do a bit of our course and go, all right, so I should get 60% of that property and they get 40% or something like that. So it's hardly ever 50-50. The court looks at contributions that you made before, during and after the relationship, monetary contributions during the relationship. And then they look at your future needs, look at whether there's been family violence in the home, who's got to look after the kids and get a shelter, and a myriad of things. There's a whole list of them in 79.5 that the court has to look at, and also the conduct of the parties during the marriage. So a lot of things they look at, and then they decide how much property, this is if you're in court, how much property you get in like real money and how much superannuation you should get. And it's hardly ever 50-50.
Okay.
Sometimes a very long marriage, no kids, both the same age, then it could be 50-50. But, all of these factors have to come in. Yep, it's hardly
So
ever 50-50.
if you're listening today and you're stuck on that point, there you go. You don't need to be stuck. It's okay. Now, the other thing I've noticed that gets people stuck, and I think I might have been one of these people, is I was very avoidant. I stuck my head in the sand like an ostrich. Is that what they do? They stick their head in the sand?
Yes, they do. I've seen it.
Or a turtle pulled my head in and went, nope, I'm not even going to focus on this. I'm just going to keep cleaning the playroom. Oh, my goodness, did I clean, Mum?
Did you?
That's all I did. I just cleaned everything to an inch of its life. I did that instead of sorting out what I actually needed to sort.
You had that perfect housewife book.
I did have a perfect housewife book. Yes, I was the perfect housewife.
That's right.
But I didn't want to find out the answers because I was afraid of the answers. I didn't want to go to a lawyer. I didn't want to know because I was afraid of what they would say.
And you didn't tell me because you knew
you were afraid. I was afraid what you would say. So avoidance really does keep people emotionally and financially stuck. And I want you to ask yourself today, if you're listening, and maybe you are cleaning, if you're one of these people, when the kids went to my ex for the weekend or whatever, and I wasn't very good at coping, and I would just clean everything. Or if it was just before court or just before mediation, you should have seen how clean my place was. But if that's you, you're cleaning, stop right now and ask yourself, what are you avoiding? What are you avoiding? What is it that you actually really should be doing? Should you be educating yourself on this process? Should you go see a lawyer? Should you be taking those first steps? Should you be doing your disclosure?
And don't let the urgency of day-to-day living overcome the important, because something has to give and you need to take a priority. Like I said, avoidance looks like getting up and doing the thing and going to work and coming home, and you will feel so much better if you can take a baby step.
Well, look, if you're a mum or a dad or a parent and you've got a job and you're running a household and you're doing all of the things, doing a divorce does feel like a bit of a job. Like it feels like an extra part-time job. And you can easily say, I am way too busy for that. I don't have time to pick up the divorce hobby of figuring all this stuff out. And you've got all these other things you need to do. But sometimes it's a good idea to sit down, because otherwise you're just in that limbo forever until your time limit runs out and then everything falls as it is, or until you no longer can afford to continue going the way you are. And then it's urgent, like it's super urgent.
And it can be really bad for your health and mental health. Yeah.
So ask yourself, what are you avoiding? And give me some cleaning tips in the comments. Because I even used to watch those cleaning videos, Mum, with the high pressure hose.
Did you?
It was so satisfying. Anyway, all right, let's get on to another reason people feel stuck. And this is a biggie. It's because they don't know what to do next. They just don't know. They don't know. And we get that email so often. Hey, I'm at this point. What am I supposed to do next?
It crossed my mind when you were talking about people who, you told them you can stop cleaning. What are you avoiding? But yes, I know what I'm avoiding, they might say, but how do I do? What's the first thing I've got to do?
So there's, they're not knowing what the next step is, or maybe they're waiting for things to settle before they do the next thing.
Or for the house to sell, or for someone to come back from overseas, or till the child's 18.
Well, we do hear that a lot. I want to wait until, and again, we're not saying, if you want to give it a try and not get divorced, please, by all means, don't get divorced. Don't put yourself through it if it's safe and healthy and you can get yourselves back on track. We're not saying hurry up and get divorced. No. What we're saying is if you've 100% made up your mind that you need to get out of this relationship, or you've even already separated, but you're just doing this weird in-betweeny stuff, the illusion of moving on with your life, but you haven't moved on with your life and you can't move on with your life until you extract yourself. And Mum, you describe it as tentacles, or is it you're peeling their tentacles off one at a time?
It is. I thought of it as molasses, like a big sticky gooey molasses. You're trying to step out of it. But yes, you really have to peel those tentacles off one at a time for you to be free. So I guess, what are you avoiding? We asked in the last question. what are you waiting for in this question? And then identifying what that is and seeing if that's compatible with your mental health and your survival strategy and your legal rights.
Yeah. So when people say, what is the next step? You know, for some of you, all the next steps are going to be different because everyone's going to be at a different stage in the process. But, you know, have a little think in your head, okay, what is it that I need to do next? Do I just need to be figuring out what the property pool is? Do I need to be figuring out what percentage I'm entitled to? Do I need to be going to see a lawyer? Or another example.
To find out where you stand. Just find out how much.
Where these people have moved on with their life, but they're still financially entangled. Or, you know, your cars are still in each other's names and you're still paying each other's rego or sending each other. Like, you need to extract yourself because you can't actually have a new life. Like, some people are separated for 10 years and they're still trying to deal with each other's rego and all that sort of stuff. And great if it's amicable, but how can you move on with your life with a new partner if you're still kind of semi-co-partner with this other person?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So if you don't mind it, that's fine. But if it's eating at you, then yes, what's the next step? And when you go to the lawyer, it's not going to start all hell. It just means you're going to find out where you stand.
Yeah. And in the course, we take you through how you can do that, because I know that was one of the things that scared me. I thought if I went and saw a lawyer, that meant I had to give them all this money and it meant court. And I thought, I don't want to do that. Or I thought going to see a lawyer meant everyone was in trouble. It was all these things in my head. Like, I felt like seeing a lawyer was like going to see the school principal to dob on someone. Really, it's to go and see a lawyer to get information. It doesn't mean you're starting a war. It doesn't mean you're going to court. And it doesn't mean you have to hand over all your money to this lawyer. And so I cannot recommend it enough for someone who's listening today who feels stuck, who is in that space to ready to just go and see a lawyer once. Just see a lawyer once. Choose a good one, though. Choose a good one.
But you would, if you're buying a business, you would go and see a lawyer. If you're doing your wills, you usually go and see a lawyer. And there's no consequences or there's no embarrassment about that. And in family law, it's the same. Treat it a little bit like a business. And if you're a bit shy, then imagine you're doing it for someone else, for the kids' benefit or whatever. And take a friend, take a fierce friend and take some notes. We show you how to get the most out of that thing. And then once you've got an idea what your future looks like, you can start to look forward to it.
Yeah.
Instead of looking back.
And once you've seen that lawyer, you can go and do a lot of it yourself. Like we show you in the course, we show you how to do the letter negotiations. We show you how to do mediation for yourself. There's a lot of things you can do, the disclosure part. You can do all of that yourself and save yourself a lot of money. Yes. So it's just you've got to take those next steps. Now, let's talk about the chicken and the egg problem. Now, Mum and I were talking about if you're separated or about to be and you need to get everything finalised and sorted but you don't know what to do next, or you're looking for a way to do your own divorce and settlement without spending thousands of dollars on lawyer, then you already know what you need to do, and that is to sign up and become a member of the DIY Divorce Blueprint. Empower, educate and equip yourself with the legal know-how and the tools you need to get divorced or de facto separated and finally settle. Work through this course at your own pace without feeling confused, lost, scared or overwhelmed of all the family law legal jargon and processes. Let us walk with you through this journey and show you a better way. Now, let's talk about the chicken and the egg problem. Now, Mum and I were talking about before this, and Mum was like, Laura, that's not the right analogy. And but I had it in my head, I couldn't fit it. But this
go right ahead.
So people are worrying about what comes first, waiting for separation clarity before they sort their property, or waiting for property clarity before separating properly. And people get stuck in this loop. And this could be happening not just in separated under one roof. It could be happening with the business, waiting for the business to do something before you can have property settlement. And this what comes first loop really gets people stuck. So let's just touch on the ones that are, first of all, waiting property separation clarity before selling property. So people say, my ex say we can't have property settlement because we're not divorced properly or we're not separated properly. What do you say to those people?
Well, I'll say it loudly for those in the back.
Okay.
You don't have to wait to have your property settlement. And in fact, you don't have to wait for the divorce. If you wait for the divorce, then you are putting a time clock on yourself of 12 months. If you're separated and de facto, you've only got 2 years from the date of separation. And if you're separating under one roof, that figure, that day isn't as clear as if you'd moved in on a particular date or moved out. So you need to move on with it. And a lot of people do their entire property settlement before anything gets sold. What you're putting in your consent orders is the mechanism for getting out of that.
So important to say, because there's some people say, unless we've sold all our assets and put it into cash, then we can have property settlement, or we can't have property settlement till we've sold the house. So you're saying, no, that's not that. You can have a property settlement that states step by step what's going to happen and that you've all agreed to.
And the orders are almost always proactive, right? So almost always people haven't already sold their house, or almost always they haven't split their super or whatever. So all of the orders are future looking. And so you could say within 30 days, we're going to do this, and within 45. So the court always makes those kind of proactive orders. So don't wait until the house is ready to sell or whatever. You can plan for it in the future, put them down in writing, and there's your roadmap for separation and division of property.
We also hear people there were some people on the webinar last night, and they were saying, look, I think we're going to separate. We're going to marriage counselling. I'm not sure though. Should I wait and not do anything until I know it's 100%? But then they wrote, but I'm pretty sure that they're just... So if you haven't properly separated yet, but you're worried and you need to protect yourself because you think your ex might be sneaky, then you don't have to wait for the separation clarity to do some of this stuff, do you, Mum?
Yeah, to just find out where you stand. It's like if you're going to sell your house and buy a new one, how many of us go and start looking at houses before we've sold the old one to get an idea? So you go and get an idea of where you stand. And over my career, so many times people would come in and say, I think we're going to be okay. We're going to counselling, but I just can't relax because I don't know what's going to happen if we do separate. And so they get that information, and I wish them all the best and set them off. And sometimes they'll come back and go, yes, it didn't work out. But other times I'm kind of hoping that they got back together again. It was all good. But not knowing, and when speaking mainly to the women here, but when you have a baby, there are tons and tons of baby books and heaps of things online to prepare you for this. But we don't talk about divorce.
No.
And there's nothing really much out there that gives you sensible, practical advice.
Yeah, and I think even if you're not sure if you're going to get separated yet, knowing what you could be entitled to if you get separated, particularly if you're starting to think, am I in a coercive control relationship or is this family violence? If you know what you're entitled to in a property settlement, if you did separate, you are stronger and easier and able to less fearfully walk away knowing that you're going to be okay. But if you don't know, and if you think, I've got no idea what's going to happen next, you might not walk away. You might just stay there because you think that's easier and safer for you.
But what if they walk away? That's the
right.
thing.
And that's what usually happens, isn't it? Sometimes that happens. People hold on.
Happens.
And then the other person walks away. And we're not trying to scare you, but we're saying if you go and figure out your property percentages, you can go and see a lawyer, you can do our course, figure out what you're entitled to. It might give you a little bit more of a relief. So when your partner does say we're separating, the blow is still going to be horrible, but it's going to be less terrifying.
It's like your plan A is to repair things through counselling. Plan B is always helpful to have to take away that overwhelm feeling because you've got enough to worry about if you're separating for good.
Now let's get to the other chicken and the egg situation that I see, and that's property clarity before separating properly. And these are the separated under one roof people. They're like, we can't separate properly. We're still living together because we haven't sorted out our property. So they're just stuck in this big mess, and we see it and it breaks our hearts. People have been living with their exes for years because they can't sort out what to do with the property. So they're never separated properly because they're just stuck in this muck of being joined together by property.
Look, there's almost no property mess that can't be sorted out in the court. The family court's been running since 1975 and there's nothing new, that comes up. So you can get a division of property settlement at any time if you need it. what worries me is a long-term living under one roof, right? If you both were over the relationship, I think someone moves out. It's like night follows day. I think the two of you under one roof, there's a fair chance that one of you doesn't want to separate, or one of you wants to just hang around and just impose themselves. And so you might think, oh, we'll get our property sorted and then they'll go. But it just doesn't work. They might not cooperate in getting the house ready for sale. It's just they don't cooperate in disclosure and so forth. So there's a lot of blurry areas there, and you might need to get it on a fairly formal basis.
So we've got a lot of episodes on Separated Under One Roof, the do's and don'ts, and I recommend you go listen to that and help I'm stuck, I'm separated under one roof. That will be really helpful for you if you're listening today and you're in that situation. But just put it in your head and be mindful, all right, am I just stuck in this situation and something needs to happen? Nothing changes unless nothing changes. So if you are stuck in those positions, our first module of the DIY Divorce Blueprint, Preparing for the Worst but Hoping for the Best, takes you through the things and steps you can take if you haven't got separation clarity yet. What can you do to get your ducks in a row in case you do? It also takes you through, who moves out? What happens? What are you supposed to do? And we really help you with that part of the process. So we've heard people say, you can't leave until we've got official parenting orders. You can't leave until we've got official property orders. But that's not true. You can negotiate from somewhere else and you can just go. So please don't fall for that nasty little trick that we're seeing a lot in emails from our members. Now, so just remind yourself, if this is you, if you're listening today, are you one of those people stuck in the waiting for separation clarity before getting yourself sorted with property? Or are you one of those people that are waiting for property clarity before you separate properly? So I know it's technically not chicken and the egg, but as either of those can come first. Either the egg or the chicken can come first, and either property or separation clarity can come first. And like you said, Mum, even if you don't go to court, even if you are just in this disclosure phase nightmare or going to mediations, or just that I'm too scared to start it because I don't know when it will end, if you understand the process, you will get a lot of relief. Like literally not knowing timelines gives you anxiety. Like it's like if you're in year 12 and you've got ATAR assignments, but no one tells you the due date. Of course, you're going to be stressed because you're going to go, I don't know how long I'm supposed to work on this for. Like, how does this work? So if you don't have an end date, if you don't have an understanding of the timelines, of course, you're going to be anxious. So knowing the stages is just as important as knowing the final result. And you all know what the final result is technically. It's that you're finished, your property's sorted, your kids' stuff's sorted, and you go your separate ways. That's the final result. Don't focus on that. You need to focus on the stages. And once you know those stages, the whole not knowing when it will end takes a little bit of the fear away. And I always use this analogy, Mum, because when I gave birth to my first daughter, she was really early and I hadn't read my pregnancy book yet. And I didn't know what was going to happen because I hadn't got to that stage yet. And I rang you and I said, please bring my birthing book to the suite where I was giving birth. And the whole time I was flipping through pages, and the whole time I was freaking out because I didn't know when the heck did this end. And I knew the baby was going to be born. I just didn't know the stages that I would go through. And so it was horrifying. The second time I gave birth, I knew what was going to happen. I knew the stages and I felt so much more relieved, and the process was so less stressful. I know I don't want to describe divorce as the same as giving birth, but it's a lot of pain and for a lot of happiness at the end, and it's kind of the same. But if you know the process, and maybe we do just need to write that book, Mum, but we do have the online course, and you can do the online course and you can learn the process, you know the steps, and you can get yourself through it, because focusing on just the final result isn't going to help your anxiety while you're going through it. So I'm just going to put it out there. I want you all to have a plan. I want all of you to have a plan. I don't care where you're at, whether you haven't started yet, whether you're stuck under one roof, whether you're thinking about going to court, whether you're just days before trial. If you have a plan, it changes everything. And I was always a planner. And the minute I had some clarity with you, the minute I understood the process, my fear disappeared to an extent. And understanding what your options are instead of just guessing every day. With your ex throws something at you, you get a letter from your ex's lawyer, or they text you and say, you have to do this. Instead of guessing if you know what your options are, well, I know I can do this or this, you're going to feel a little bit more in control. And knowledge really helps create that confidence and momentum that I want for you guys. So I want you to create a plan. Whether that plan includes doing our course, I don't know, but you do need to know that it is open. So we're giving this gentle reminder that the course is open at the moment. Enrollment's closed next week if you're listening to this in real time. But if you're not going to do the course, make a plan is that you're going to see a lawyer. If you can't afford to see a lawyer, go and see a community lawyer. Make the plan to just book the appointment. Is the plan to just sit down and listen to some more of these episodes and get your head around it? Make a plan and you will feel a little bit more less fearful. So I think the real message from this episode is that staying stuck, it's not a plan and it's not protecting you either, because you've got these timelines you need to be worried about. You've got one of those exes that's sneaky. They could be doing things behind the scenes. So staying stuck isn't helping you. So you need to go and make a plan, take those next steps. Do our course if you want, and it's structured to show you each step of the way. You can come along to the weekly Q&As and say, hey, I'm stuck on this bit. What do I do next? Get a plan, take those next steps and get yourself unstuck. And you're not alone. The reason we did this episode is because there's so many of you out there that message us and call us and email us, and you just think, holy moly, these people are stuck on things that aren't even real, Mum. It literally makes me want to cry sometimes when I read them. And I just think this poor lady has been stuck on this not true fact and been living in limbo with their ex, abusive this one, for years. And all she needed to know was that's not true and she could have moved on. So I just want to get it out there to all of you as much as I can that you really need to get this information for yourself, because it's your life and it's your future. Don't let them steal any more from you than they already have. I am really sorry if this has upset anyone or if it's triggered anyone. Please call 13 11 14 Lifeline. If you are stuck and you feel afraid for other reasons, please call 1-800-RESPECT. Go and listen to our episodes like 4 Things You Might Not Realize Are Coercive Control. And come along to our webinar if you're interested in coming along, or doors are now open for the DIY Divorce Blueprint. Come and do your divorce and get through this yuckiness with us, with the community, and let us help you. But we really, really, no matter where you're listening to in the world, wish you all the best with what you're going through. And we really hope that this is going to unstick at least, one person who's listening today is going to have a nicer, better future sooner. So yeah, if you want to write a comment, if you want to rate, give us 5 stars, subscribe to us on YouTube if it's safe. Just get us out there so more people can see it, and we'd be so appreciative. And Mum, I can't thank you enough for your time. And we will see you guys all next week, or maybe we'll see you at the webinar. Thanks. Bye.
If you found this podcast helpful, we'd love it if you could rate, review and subscribe. By doing so, you are spreading the word to help someone else just like you. Lim would like to remind you that this podcast is general advice only, and you should always get legal advice in relation to your particular situation. And remember that the Australian laws may have changed since recording.